my friends, and welcome to another episode of Your Math Class. Today we are going to be doing a new shape. We're going to be learning about the area of a triangle. Now the first thing I've noted on these notes is we've got this shape here. It's a triangle. It's got some blue lines around it. And it's got this question, what do you notice? Now what do you notice when you look at this triangle now that it has the blue line around it? Well, I'll tell you what I noticed, that a triangle is half of a rectangle or square. And that's really the truth. Any triangle, no matter what its shape, is always going to be half of a rectangle, even if that triangle's cut up, which we're going to learn about on the second page. Always, always, always. So if a triangle is half of a rectangle or a square, and we know that the area for a rectangle or a square is length times width, let's look at what the area for a triangle is. So it says here that the formula used to calculate the surface area of a triangle is area equals 1/2 multiplied by height multiplied by base. And those little things let you know that those are height and base. Now it says here that we use a half symbol because a triangle is half of a rectangle or a square. Now, there are two ways to plug this into your calculator, which is what I want to talk about first, right? Because a half symbol, you could use 1 divided by 2 on your calculator, or you could use 0.5, anything that means half, because the triangle is half of a square. So in order to calculate the area of a triangle, you need to know that your formula is 1/2 multiplied by the height and the base. Now the base is this length on the bottom, which you'll remember from your rectangles was called the width. And the height is the height of your triangle, which before was called the length. And now in a triangle, we call it the height. So we have these sort of calculations to plug into your calculator. There's two ways you can plug this into your calculator. The first way you can do it is you can press the 1, the divide symbol, and the 2, because that gives us that 1/2 fraction. Multiplied by, and you know what's really neat is the minute you hit this multiply button, it's going to instantly change to a 0.5 because it's going to recognize that 1 divided by 2 is 0.5. And you're going to multiply it by 3 because that is going to be the height of our triangle. And then you're going to multiply it by 2, which is the base, and we see the base is 2. And then you're going to get an answer of 3. Or alternatively, to actually key in one less key, you're going to see that you can, instead of putting 1 divided by 2, you can just put 0.5, because 1 divided by 2 ends up equaling 0.5. Check it on your calculator if you don't believe me. Instead of doing it that way, you can do 0.5 multiplied by 3 multiplied by 2 equals 3. You're going to get the same answer either way. It's just whatever you prefer to do on your calculator. For the longest time, I always did 1 divided by 2 multiplied by base times height. Always was what I always did. And then as I started to move into decimals and understanding decimals a little bit more and being able to work with decimals a little bit more, working with 0.5 made more sense to me, and it meant I had to press one last key on my calculator, and that just made my day a little bit quicker. So look at these images that I have here, and it just proves that all triangles, including our obtuse and our acute triangles, use this formula, because actually all triangles are half of a square or a rectangle. If you just put a rectangle around it, instantly you're going to see that this space right here can all kind of fit into this space, and same with this one here, that's half. And these two little mini triangles here are always going to fit. Look at, even having the line down the middle lets us see that this is half of this and this is half of this. This one's a little bit more difficult to see, I know, but it's actually true. This is half of these two things together would equal the same measurement as that center part. So let's work on figuring out the area of a triangle. So our first triangle here, we're going to go ahead and calculate use the formula. So we know that the formula, just like from our squares, is base multiplied by height. But because a triangle is half of a rectangle or a square, we also have to include this multiplied by 1/2. You can also put 0.5. I like to put 0.5 in the calculator because it saves me a button. But when I create it on the actual formula, I want people to see that I'm recognizing that a triangle is half of a square. So right here we see that our base from here to here, and that's where we calculate our base, not from here to here. From here to here is 9.6. So I'm going to go ahead and continue with my formula where it says So 1/2 multiplied by 9.6 multiplied by 6 meters. Now, oh, I should have remembered to check, but thank goodness I checked now. They are both in meters, so this is going to make it a lot easier for me to go ahead and do my calculation. I don't have to use the chart of metrics to change anything. So now I just have to multiply that by 6, and then I'm going to get my answer. And our answer ends up being 28.8. Now don't forget, of course, that we always have to include our unit. Our unit is meters. And don't forget, because it is a 2D object, we have to include a 2 up here. Okay, so our next shape that we have here is a triangle again. So what I've done here is I've included the dotted lines outside of your triangle. You won't always see that, but I just wanted to do it for your notes so that you can see that a triangle is equal to half of a rectangle. Now I did some little circling here and some noticing that we have 2 different units. We have centimeters and millimeters, okay? So I'm going to decide, you always have to check your book whether they want you to do it in millimeters or centimeters, and I'm going to go ahead and change this 60 millimeters to 4 centimeters. I've been having a lot of people ask me about the chart of metrics and they can't remember how to do it. Remember, if you're moving up, you just move your decimal place. So a decimal place is always found at the end of a number, whether it's there or not. It's always actually there. So I'm going to turn this 60 millimeters into 6 centimeters, and all I have to do is move my decimal 1, because centimeters always comes after millimeters. Millimeters is the smallest unit possible in the chart of metrics, and centimeters is the second smallest. So 10 millimeters can always fit into 1 centimeter, so that I know that 60 millimeters fit into 6 centimeters. So it ends up being 6 centimeters. So I can just sort of X off that 0, and I know that my units end up being 6 centimeters and 4 centimeters. So again, really easy. My formula is 1/2 multiplied by base multiplied by height. And all I have to do is do 1/2 multiplied by 6, remember, because I made that change to centimeters, multiplied by 4. So now I just have to do a simple calculation into my calculator. Or you know what I can also do is I can just know that 6 multiplied by 4 is 24. And when you multiply any number by half, it ends up splitting it in 2. So I know that my answer is 12 centimeters squared. All right, so we have our last shape here. So the first thing I see when I see my shape is I'm seeing 2 different units. I'm seeing hectometer and kilometer, and I know that kilometer is the biggest possible unit in the chart of metrics, and hectometer is the second biggest, so it's going to be really easy for me to make that transition. I think I'm going to make the transition to hectometers because I know just by bringing this decimal and putting it right here, I get 15 hectometers, right? Because hectometers are smaller than a kilometer. I also noticed right away that it is a triangle. This little blue line on the outside, again, my friends, is just to let you see that a triangle is half of a square or a rectangle. Okay? So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to plug in my formula, which is half multiplied times base multiplied by the height. So I'm just going to put in my half multiplied by the base, which is 17 hectometers, and then I'm going to multiply it by the height, which is 15 hectometers, and I'm going to get my total. So my total ends up being 127.5. I can't forget that it's hectometers, and I can't forget to put a little 2 on the top there. And there I moved it just so you can see it a little better. I didn't realize that it was not focused.